This is Leisha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast. And sometimes when you've got somebody in your mind that you want to bring on your pod, and for one reason or another, it takes a little bit of time, but it just goes to show that patience is indeed a virtue, because I am thrilled to welcome to our global community today somebody who I've been following for, I know it's at least 5 years because they've just celebrated 5 years on LinkedIn. This is Leah Turner. Welcome to you today in a vision of pink.
Yeah, it's lovely to be here finally. Yeah, it's my fault that it's taken a while, isn't it? Because I keep delaying it because I've been so busy and disasters are constantly cropping up. But I'm glad we finally made it.
We finally did it. And I cannot believe, I think I looked at your followers, you've got about 185,000 followers on LinkedIn, which is just, you're possibly going to be one of the most followed guests I've ever had on the show. I cannot believe that anyone that's listening doesn't know who you are. But for those who maybe don't know who you are, give us a little overview as to who you are and what you do, Leah.
So I started on LinkedIn 5 years ago, or started posting regularly on LinkedIn about 5 years ago when I had a transcription business. I very quickly gained a following without really meaning to, and a lot of clients for my small business. And then when COVID hit, my business was really badly affected. My clients couldn't see their clients. And so I pivoted because I was getting asked endlessly, how am I getting all these leads on LinkedIn? How am I getting so many followers? And I started training people how to use LinkedIn to do what I was doing, to build their followers, but more importantly, find clients and build relationships and attract opportunities. That went extremely well. And I went from having a business that turned over under £20,000 a year, working like 40 to 60-hour weeks as a solo mum with my little boy at home, to a business that turned over six figures in its first 10 months. I started selling digital resources, doing webinars, doing corporate trainings. I became extremely well known in my field and was getting amazing results. And 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, I launched a small business community called the HoLT, which is for freelancers, solopreneurs, and sort of small business owners, to help provide training from amazing experts, community, to help support them and to support each other. And that has grown to nearly 600 members and offers discounts, masterclasses, in-person events, online networking, and masses of support. And that is now what I'm taking forward into 2025 as my only business. The LinkedIn training is stopping at the end of this year, and I'm going all in on the membership. Yeah, but it brings me so much joy, and I guess I'm trying to sort of move away from being known as a LinkedIn trainer and into being, a community builder. And I also do charity work. I'm on the board of a charity called Hope that operates out of Moldova. I'm back there on Friday with my son. We're going back out to help and volunteer with the refugees and people that have been affected by trafficking, war, poverty, and domestic violence. So yeah, that's, I guess, in a nutshell.
What an amazing synopsis of someone that you could probably have given an introduction for the whole podcast show. But I think if I observe as somebody that's watched and witnessed you on LinkedIn, because I've been on LinkedIn probably for about 17 years, like quite an early adopter, you absolutely just boomed onto the market about, like you say, about 2019, 2020. And I think what really always stood out for me in those early days of you sort of, I guess, sharing amongst people that, like, we didn't know each other, was you just seemed really generous. And that, I think that really came across in the videos, because you were happy to put yourself out there on videos, and I'm also one that's always been happy to do that. You've always come across as a very generous person, but also you almost demystify, which for a lot of people is something, as a tool that is just anybody can use. So I kind of want a position where I started watching you, and I know people that did all your LinkedIn training. I've had friends that have done your LinkedIn training actually, and that's a very congested marketplace. So I just wanted to say, from my perspective, I think one of the main reasons I wanted to get you on is that I've got so much respect for anybody that puts themselves out there. But not only did you put yourself out there, you were generous with it and created a business which set you apart when everyone else seemed to be doing the same stuff, whereas you seem to have this uniqueness about you.
I think I had a bit of a natural advantage in the fact that I don't look like what people expected of a LinkedIn trainer. So, for people listening, I've got a lot of very blonde hair. and head to toe in tattoos, piercings, and I don't look like your typical kind of corporate person. I've never worked in corporate, and I've never been interested in working in corporate. And I also grew up using like online as a way of networking. So in my teens, I was networking on like chat rooms and MSN, and I was building friendships with people from all over the world. So I kind of had a natural advantage that to write. So it was a way for me to flex my creativity in creating content, and those things sort of serendipitously all came together and went, oh, actually, you're good at this. Like, you can build a profile on LinkedIn of all places, because I never in a million years would have imagined, if you said to me 6 years ago, you're going to be one of the most followed people in the UK, I would have laughed, because I didn't know a thing about business. I certainly didn't know anything about LinkedIn, but I've always approached it as I network online the way I would in person. Actually, I'm probably a little bit more confident online. I'm a bit more awkward and socially anxious in person, but like human, in a human way, like be open, be honest, be friendly, be funny, be like all the things that make you who you are, and see, like, let people see the full version, not everything about you, but like a more well-rounded version of you, rather than this kind of one-dimensional version that so many people feel like they should present on
like
LinkedIn.
bland. And I think that's where, for me, if I think about a very overused word, which is authentic on LinkedIn, I think that people who are more distinctive, who are more memorable, whether that's a physical attributes, whether that's personality, whether that's service led, in your case, it's all of those things combined. I think that absolutely epitomizes why people should listen to this podcast, and why people should, take on board people like yourself, because we're all different. And I think everyone talks about diversity and inclusion, and it's all bullshit most of the time. You are living and breathing it. That I think the reason that you absolutely elevated yourself amongst everyone else in that sort of space is because you do look different and you behave differently, and you don't subscribe to the whole corporate bullshit that everyone's like, this is what you must post and you must do it like this. You were just saying, well, this is how I've done it, and look how colourful and bright and different it is. So I think that's what's really set you apart at the time. And I think there is still, is it something like there's only 10% of LinkedIn users that actually post regularly on LinkedIn? That blows my mind.
I understand it from a perspective of employees, because there's so much anxiety around getting themselves in trouble. What if I say the wrong thing? Or what if my boss doesn't like that? Or what if I comment on something and I shouldn't have said that? Or they're worried because they're in this sort of scarcity mindset of, oh, well, if I'm engaging with my ideal clients, what if my competitors see and they go after them and all of that?
Right.
I never had any of that. So much to a lot of people's surprise, I am not a competitive person. There is not a competitive bone in my body. I do not care how well other people do, or how fast they do it, or if they're doing better than me. I've never been competitive in my life. And I know that can be something that makes entrepreneurs extremely successful, because they've got that edge, that will to be better than the rest. But I'm like, no, I just need to be better than me yesterday. Like, I just need to keep improving for me. It doesn't matter what other people are doing. And it's very hard on LinkedIn to stay in that lane and to not get distracted by other people's success and how quickly they're doing it, and like the way that they're doing it. And because I never worked in corporate, because I'm not a competitive person, I don't think I've really been influenced or impeded by constantly comparing myself to others. Don't get me wrong, like I'm still a 39-year-old woman that will see beach bodies on Instagram and go, oh God, I wish I looked like that. Like I'm not completely immune to it, but in a business sense, I've been able to just go, okay, well, I just want to do what's right for me and my family, and to be able to help as many people as I can. So not gatekeeping my knowledge and being generous with my time and my support and what I share, that comes very naturally to me, because I'm not concerned that other people are going to take what I know and repackage it. They do all the time. There's loads of people that have copied my content, copied my resources. I've got people that are direct competitors within my community. I've had people lift my entire website, and it's
that's awful.
but it's annoying. But it's like, yeah, but you're not going to do it the way I do it. So
I agree with you. And actually, you and I need to continue this conversation when we've got more time offline, because that's what's always set me apart in my industry. I am very aware of what my market's super competitive, as is yours. I don't give a shit what anyone else is doing. I just concentrate on what I'm doing. I focus on my lane, and I always have done all the way through my life, actually, even since I was a teenage girl, which has meant I've often been called a maverick, I've often been called a rebel, and all these labels. But actually, what it does is that you create, and I would like to think that this is where we'll come on to HoLT, that you create a community of people around you virtually and in real life who want the best for you, which means you don't then need to compete with anyone else other than the best version of yourself.
Yeah, I notice it in recruiters a lot because I've worked with a lot of recruiters over the years, and every recruiter's like, we're not like other recruiters, and most of them are, like in some way or another. But there's definitely, particularly with the recruiters that I've worked with, this kind of distraction of watching what other people are doing all the time, and they're kind of always looking to their side, going, well, what's that person doing? Worried that if they get a recommendation on their profile from a company that they've worked with, that another recruiter is going to come in and undercut their prices and offer them a better deal. And it's like, when you operate in that mindset, you focus so much on what other people are doing that you end up doing things the way they do them to try and keep up with them. And I've always been like, I don't know how other people do business. I'm winging it constantly. But when I started my community, I didn't go into loads of other communities to try and get ideas. I was like, nope, because I want to do it differently. So I'm going to create the community that I would want to be a part of. And I'm going to provide far more value than I'm charging people for. Like, I'm going to charge them a small amount and give them so much value that they don't even know what to do with it all. And they're never going to want to leave. And I wouldn't have done that if I'd gone into other communities, because I would have been too influenced. And I like it's.
Well, then it would have felt like plagiarization as well. And I think that it's a beautiful segue into the community piece, because again, that's a word that we never really used, the community word, until COVID, I think, and collaboration, all those C words. But I think for you, for me, when I look at what you've created as a community, 600 members, you always seem to have a waiting list. And what I love is that
1,400 people on the waiting list.
That's incredible. So, there will be people listening, because my community of listeners on the podcast is largely recruitment leaders, whether that's SME. We have got a lot of global listeners as well. And we've got a lot of people over in the States, America, and obviously America, Australia. That we also get people that are on that sort of growth in their recruitment career that are starting out. So we get a real disparity of people listening, but generally speaking, it's all recruiters. And I think community never used to be something we discussed. We were always very guarded. So, it blends very well with your mindset of, I think, as a recruitment business owner, you can and do have a community instantly, even if you think, oh, it's just marketing speaking. Like, you actually do. It's your customers, it's your advocates in the market, it's the people that you've placed, actually, it can often be your competition. So talk us through, I guess what I like was that beautiful segue where it's, the why HoLT came about. So what do you see as the advantage for your members of being part of HoLT?
So when I first started my first business, I was 26 and I lived in Brighton in a 1-bedroom flat, and I worked on my own, and I had headphones on and I was transcribing medical documents and market research and building surveys, and it was thoroughly boring, but it was mine, and it gave me freedom. But I was painfully lonely. I could go days without seeing another human being because I was glued to my computer, and it resulted in me ending up buying my dog. I got my dog, and he gave me a reason to go out and meet people and actually get some fresh air and leave my desk a couple of times a day. And I realized when I changed, and I was, then I had my son, and again, I was alone a lot. And then like COVID happened, and I was alone even more because it was just me and my little boy at home. And I realized when I was on LinkedIn that that's not unusual. There was loads of people. The clients I was working with LinkedIn training, they've gone from jobs where they're surrounded by people all the time to working in their living rooms at the dining tables, not seeing people for days on end, and having no one to turn to go, this shit is hard. I am struggling. I'm having a bad day, or I just want a client and it's the biggest contract I've ever got and I want to celebrate. And, their friends, their family, they were employed. They didn't get that that feeling of that emotional roller coaster you're on when you're an entrepreneur, when you have your own business. Some days you're absolutely on top of the world. Other days you never want to get out of bed. And it's really, really difficult when you're around people. And I know my best friends, I love them to pieces. I've known them since I was 7, but they're employed, and like their vocational primary school teacher works in publishing. They get their set salary at the end of every month. And I had days where I did 10 grand in a day, and I was like, oh, but I felt weird talking about that to them. It felt uncomfortable. And to my mum, who's, you know, never earned more than minimum wage in her life, I was like, who do I celebrate these things with? And of course I was doing things like that on LinkedIn as part of a marketing strategy, but I wanted to talk to other people that got it, the highs and the lows. And so when I started the HoLT, part of it was I wanted to build a community so I didn't feel lonely. So I had people to relate to, because I knew from the LinkedIn training I was doing that it wasn't, my experience wasn't unique. And that made me feel a lot better. But also I had such a big following on LinkedIn, and so many people that wanted me on their podcast, wanted me to do masterclasses for their memberships or their clients. They wanted me to come to events and speak. They wanted all this stuff from me. And I was like, well, they want me because they want me to bring my audience to them, which is great. But what do I get out of it? Because I could get something in return here. And because I'm annoyingly generous to the point it could be detrimental to me sometimes. I'm such a people pleaser. It's like, but I've got all these small business owners that are lonely, and I know personally that I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know how to set up a lead magnet. I didn't know how to host a sales call. I didn't know how to write conversion copy. I didn't know how to do email marketing. All these things that I needed to learn, that took me hours and hours of hyper focusing and Googling and going on YouTube and learning these things. It's like, well, surely other small businesses are like me. They don't have these skills either. And they don't have $300-400 to spend on an expert to teach them, or a course, or to hire an expert yet. So why don't I use this big network that wants my audience to bring in amazing people to teach these people, and they can fight their loneliness and they can learn their new skills. And no, we're not going to just only host them live. We're going to put every single one in a library. And it doesn't matter if you join today or you joined 2 years ago, you will have access to every single one we've ever hosted forever. And it seems crazy because we only charge £50 a month, and they get, like, we've got my tech team do a tech clinic once a month. So if they've got like a small problem with their automation, or their email marketing has gone down, they can't hook their lead magnet up, or one of their Zaps is not functioning, my tech lady will fix it for them live. And it doesn't cost them anything, so they're saving money. We've got a sales clinic where they can come and literally say, I'm struggling with this, and a sales expert will show them how. And it's all like, we only charge £50 a month, which is like a really little considering what they like 4 to 6 months.
Like £1.10 a day or something.
And they get between 4 and 8 masterclasses every month. They're added to the library.
Wow.
Every month, plus a LinkedIn clinic, a sales clinic, a tech clinic. So a lot of people have said you're mad not charging more. But the point is, like, it needs to be low price to reach the people who need it.
Yeah, it does.
And I'd rather operate at volume. And, you know, aside from what we give them, it's what they give each other. That was going
to be my next point, because I think loneliness is the biggest challenge faced by a lot of my listeners, even if they've got people working for them. Because very often, particularly if I think about leaders, what you said there really resonated, that, you know, even though I've got a business partner and I've got a very supportive boyfriend, I've got amazing friends, unless you have actually run your own business, you can't understand what it's like to have late invoices, to know that there's always something you should be doing. Even when you're on holiday, you have your 1 week off a year and something happens where you need to deal with it. And I think to have people that are available, that you've curated in this community, I think it's just such a magnificent human thing to do. And I think that, would we be having this conversation if COVID hadn't happened? Because I don't think anybody realized how important connection was as human beings. We just took it for granted. So I think we're at a really important point in time, especially with, you know, the threat of automation taking over. I don't want a robot serving me in a restaurant, and Elon, I don't want a robot in my house. You know what I mean?
I'll take the robot to clean my house.
I was going to say possibly, actually, I might.
Cook me dinner. If I can get a robot cook, I'm up for that.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I like cooking though. But I agree about the washing constantly. The washing.
Yeah.
I've got 2 teenage daughters, and one just seems to wear something for like 5 minutes and puts it in the wash, and I'm like, the washing machine's literally there. But
Everyone's like that. Yeah.
yeah.
I think you're exactly right. And I think one of the things that was super, super important to me when I started the HoLT was I wanted to make sure that people were talking to each other. And I actually consult for other communities now. One of the things that comes up regularly is people don't engage in the community.
Yeah.
There's the HoLT, you cannot shut people up. Like, it's so busy all the time. And if you say, like the other day we had someone, they posted that they were looking for a placement for their son who's just done a master's degree and needs a sports placement for a year. And we had like a dozen people jump in with
I love
that they could help with. Someone else has got a problem with one of their email automations, and someone else has jumped on a call and sorted it out. And I did, like, people are there to help each other, like genuinely really, really help each other. Someone's just, two of the ladies heard my podcast a couple of weeks ago and left their jobs and have gone all in on their side hustles. And one of them wanted to
I saw you post that, and I was like, yes.
One of them wanted to do some market research before she sets up her new BDM offering. And she wanted to try and get as many responses as possible. I tagged all the members of the HoLT in it, and she's had like 40, 50 responses on it. That's really helping her to tailor her results. Someone's got a problem with pricing. Well, we've got a pricing expert in there who gave her an absolute masterclass in a comment on how she should be pricing her packages. And the woman's like, wow. I would have paid a fortune for a coach.
You would for anything.
And she's got it for £50 a month.
But you know what? I think what must underpin that, if I think about, because I run a couple of communities, and I have been part of communities in the past, and I've left, by the way. And I think that's where you always know, it's like any relationship, isn't it? It's the bits that don't work and that fail that you learn from. You have clearly, and I want anyone listening that's either has created a community or is thinking of doing it, you have to make it safe with boundaries. That's it. That's the most important rule for me, because if you don't have that as a starting point, no one is going to do what your community is. No one's going to share that information, offer the services or whatever it might be, if that is not underpinning the whole ethos of it. Would you agree?
When we did the rebrand, so we rebranded it in March and had a brand new website built and new logo and everything. And my branding lady, Kaylee, did some research with the community. And one of the things that came back really regularly was that it's a safe space. And the reason it's a safe space is because I'm very vocal about our key rule of no knobs allowed. And on 3 occasions,
I wonder if you're going to come on to that.
it's literally like on the website prominently, no knobs allowed. And the definition of a knob for us within the community is someone who's speaking to others in a derogatory way. We have an absolute zero tolerance on sexism, ageism, like racism, homophobia, like zero tolerance. It will be one and done, you're out. But also being disrespectful to other members. That's a huge one for me, and nobody is disrespectful. But on the 3 occasions where we've had people that have behaved badly, they have been quietly and privately removed, informed that they are not a fit for the community. And I have then let the community know that a person, I don't obviously say who, has been removed. This is what they did, and this is why they've been removed. We will not tolerate that in the community. And it feels, as a people pleaser, it feels very uncomfortable for me to do that. But I'd rather get rid of someone and refund them their membership fee and say, bugger off, you're not a fit, and have their wrath at me, but protect everybody else. Because it draws them closer to me, and it makes them know that they are safe and in a place that is free of judgment. We've got people that are disabled, like physically disabled. We've got all sorts of different people with various neurodiverse conditions. We've got people that have struggled with their mental health in various other ways. We've got people of every colour and creed and religion.
Love it.
And it doesn't matter. We've got people in like 25 countries across the world.
That's amazing.
And there's no, like, I can't remember the last time there was any kind of disagreement. There are even members that don't necessarily get along with each other. they might have blocked each other on LinkedIn, but they don't bring that
But
negativity.
I was going to say, but that's fine. And I think there's so much that we can learn from this one part of the conversation in how we do business. And I don't know about you, but I think that from personal experience, as I've got older, and then as I became a single mom, solo parent, because their father buggered off 6 years ago, I think you have to be braver and bolder and be prepared to walk away from things and be prepared to say no. And I think it's the best way to do business, because then you then magnetize the right people towards you. There might be people listening now that think, oh, this all sounds like nonsense to me. And what's all community? Well, first of all, just turn off now and go and listen to Stephen Bartlett then. Bye. I don't think anyone listening is actually going to think that. But I love the no knobs allowed, and I do see it on your social, and I chuckle because I've got a number of very long-standing recruitment clients, and they have a no dickhead policy, and they literally, I've got a picture up in my just outside my bathroom, and it literally says no dicks allowed. Which is partly because it's a girl-only house, but also because I just think it's such a simple life rule, and I do think it's something that you have to own. And it might mean different things to different people, but for me, it is about respect to each other and being kind. We have one family rule in the Holmes house, which is be kind, because it covers everything.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I'm not a religious person. I don't follow any kind of organized religion. I don't believe in God. I'm very much an atheist. You die, you're dead. Thanks very much. I'd like to be worm food. But I have massive respect for people that do follow any kind of organized religion. But I think everything all boils down to the one rule is don't be a dick. And I always figured if I'm terribly wrong about religion, and I'm going to be up the top of the stairs, stood in front of St. Peter. Sorry, I got it wrong. Like, if I've lived a life where I have at every opportunity not been a dick where I can possibly help it, I'm probably going to be okay. They're probably not going to say, actually, no, well, you didn't go to church, you didn't do this. I lived a good life. I was a good person as much as I possibly could be. I didn't seek revenge on people. I didn't, cheat on my partners. I didn't do any of these, like, I'm stab anyone. Like, I'm probably going to be all right as long as I don't.
I love the thought of that. I think we could go into a whole can of worms about religion, because I was brought up in a traditional Jewish faith. I don't actually believe in God, and I don't believe in any organized faith, but I respect people that do. And I would love to be proven wrong as well on the day that I pass away, when I float up and realize that it is all flowers and angels and everything. And I'll be like, wow, because like you, I mean, I only have 3 tattoos, Leah. I've got a lot catching up to do, but one of my tattoos is Hebrew for integrity, which very cheesy, but means I have integrity running through my veins. And every action that I take, I'm not saying I'm a perfect person. I certainly wasn't when I was younger, but I'm a good person, and I see the good in people. And I think that if you have lived a good life, then that's all, you're a mom, you're a parent. And before we go, I do want to cover this, because a lot of the feedback that I get on podcast guests previously who are leaders, and you're a female founder, proudly parenting an amazing young man. What advice would you give to our listeners who do find it really challenging to get a balance right? I don't even know if you have got a balance right. I haven't actually asked you that. Like, what advice would you give to the parents listening, or those who are caregivers?
So this probably sounds idealistic. Like, I don't have balance. I definitely don't. There are evenings where I'm working late. There are times when we're supposed to be doing family time and I'm fiddling around on my phone sorting things, but I'm open with him. So I talk to him about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So he knows why I'm working hard, and I don't pretend. I don't, I will say to him, look, the reason that I'm working hard is because I'm trying to build this, and this is going to enable us to do this, and it's going to mean that we can keep the roof over our head and make sure that you can get Christmas presents and all of those sorts of things. So I'm very transparent, and I try and bring him in on the things that I'm doing as well. So I show him a lot of the things that I do. I show him when I'm building a website. I've showed him, he's been watching bits of my podcast. He comes with me on business trips where possible. So he's part of it, so it doesn't feel too divided. So I think bringing your kids where you can, including them, so that you're showing them and they're benefiting from what you're doing as well. They're seeing you work hard, but they're seeing it make you happy, hopefully, and they're seeing the fruits of your labor in, and talk to them about that. I don't sugarcoat, if my son says, oh, well, I want this, this, and this for Christmas, I'm like, I'm not made of money. Like, the reason I'm working late today is because I need to pay for the things that we want to do. So if it's going on holiday, if it's going on this, if I'm away overnight doing a training, I talk to him about why I'm doing it. And he understands the connection between me working hard and him having the life that he has, rather than just thinking it will just magically
How old is
appears.
he? How old's your son?
He's 9.
So he's literally
Yeah.
grown up with you running your own business, and that, I think that's a really important point. I don't want to
Yeah.
gloss over, because my perspective on it. I mean, my business is 19 years old, so from my eldest, who's almost 20, it's all they've ever known is mum being self-employed,
Yeah.
and I can actually have this conversation where they will articulate. And very often, if I see a post on LinkedIn where it's, someone with much younger children really struggling to, I guess, compromise in their own minds, that they, you kind of never really fully with the kids, you're never really fully doing your job. And I'm like, I asked them both, it was actually this year, I said, is there any point in your memory of obviously being alive where you have resented me having to, all the things you've said, mummy's on the phone again, look, go and watch that film, I've got a call to do, or I'm really sorry, you're going to Breakfast Club at 7 a.m. tomorrow, whatever. And my eldest one, who actually is neurodiverse, she said, she looks at me and she went, that's a really strange question to ask. Why do adults always make such a big deal out of it? And I was like, well, you're an adult now, but anyway. And I said, the reason I'm asking is because a lot of people really struggle with this compromise that they think they have to make. And she went, no, she went, at the end of the day, everybody has to work, mum. And we knew that you were doing something that you really loved. And we respected you for that. And she said it in such a matter-of-fact way that there was no guilt on my part at all. And what's really beautiful for me from a storytelling point of view is that my youngest daughter, who I did involve all the way through, even before your son's age now, there's a little video of her about 4 answering the phone going, hello, Key Recruitment, how can I help? She joined my business this year. She's actually she's podcast manager, she's running our social media, and she's resourcing for the business. And it creates, I think, and I want to create this safe conversation for people, that we're not talking about toxic working at home and go and watch that while I do this. We're saying your children, you don't need to patronize them. If you just articulate it in a simplified way, it's not it's not an either or. It's, you can do all of it, but making sure you're communicating it.
And I always think, like, what's the alternative? If I'm not at home working and I'm out in an office, and maybe I'm not getting home till later in the day, and I'm exhausted because I've had to commute, and I'm doing a job that I'm not in love with because it pays the bills, and I'm trapped because it pays well, and I've got to keep doing it. I would rather set my son an example of him seeing me working from home, doing something that I love, that helps people, that I can involve him in.
Yep.
Because I think that's a healthier way for him to grow up, seeing his mum work hard for something she's passionate about and that she loves, rather than me coming home at the end of the day stressed because I've been doing a job that I don't like and not making the same kind of money and not having that passion and that drive. I don't want to. It's like I always think, I can't really relate because I've never been a parent in a couple. I've always raised my son completely on his own, on my own, since he was born. But when you see like couples that shouldn't still be together, that stay together for the kids, and the relationship is very unhealthy, there's no affection, there's no love, they just tolerate one another, and they go, well, we need to stay together for kids. It's like, yeah, but that's the example you're giving your children of what a marriage is. Is that what you want them to grow up seeing? Because they're going to emulate that. They're going to think that that's a normal marriage, and that's not a marriage full of love. And I'm the same with my son. I want him to see a happy, healthy, passionate, driven, and capable parent that he wants to emulate, rather than someone that's a slave to something they hate doing just for the money. That would be the worst thing possible, is for me to raise a son that just gets a job that he hates for the money so he can buy nice things and impress people he doesn't care about. That for me would,
I get the feeling
he
won't be doing that, because he's
already decided once he's finished in professional football, he's going to start his own business. So it's fine.
And there you go. I think what a beautiful way to finish this phenomenal podcast. And you've got your podcast now. So tell us a little bit about that before we finish.
So it's called the HoLT Survival Guide for Small Businesses. the HoLT Survival Guide for Small Businesses. It is designed around conversations with small business owners, people who aren't trying to be billionaire tycoons. They want a business that serves their life, and talking about like the ups, the downs, the lessons that they've learned, the really familiar struggles that all of us experience at some point, in a kind of a raw and gritty but fun way. And yeah, we've talked to some really, really amazing people. The conversations, you know, they're lighthearted but super relatable. We've had amazing feedback. We've just launched episode 3 today, so it's shot to the top of the charts. We got to number 2 in the entrepreneur category, and number 12 in the business category straight away. So yeah, it's really exciting. It's nice to be learning like a new skill and trying something new that hopefully will make even more small business owners feel less alone.
It will, absolutely. And I'm sure, and the reason I mentioned it, apart from obviously to make sure people know what everything that you do, is that I think our listeners will probably want to come and have a listen, because I think everyone's a little bit bored of some of the billionaires, like you say, that are a little bit
Unrelatable,
no, they're not relatable.
Yeah.
We know who we're talking about, Bartlett. You have been joyful, as I knew you would be, and thank you for, because we know how busy you are. Thank you for giving your time to our amazing community as well. We know that, you know, all the LinkedIn connections, will make sure everything's available on the channels. Thank you for joining us on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast.
Thank you so much.
Here at the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast, we are passionate about creating a psychologically safe community where everybody feels that they belong. By doing so, we are truly being diverse, equitable, and inclusive in every guest that we bring on, which is why we are so proud of our beautiful partner, Diversity in Recruitment. Diversity in Recruitment help recruitment businesses understand diversity, equity, and inclusion in a way that makes sense. Their training and advisory work is designed and delivered by experienced recruitment professionals, giving your teams the insight, the tools, and the confidence to attract diverse talent, to recruit inclusively, to improve your candidate journey, and confidently partner with your clients. DE&I doesn't have to be complicated and scary. It's simply about fair, ethical, and high quality recruitment, something that we are so passionate about, the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast. And thank you for listening to this message.